I want to make sure you understand that next week. Next week, we're coming together at 10 a.m. This is kind of like our fall kickoff. This is back in the rhythm. And I don't know about you, but I could use the time when I get to see folks again. I know there's a lot of folks who spend a lot of time not being here. We're gonna combine the services. It's gonna be a parade of amazing music at 10 o'clock. So you got to get here an hour earlier. And then at 11 o'clock, we got free barbecue for everybody, thanks to John Bloss and a bunch of crazy guys who are going to smoke hundreds of pounds of meat. We're going to have free barbecue. We're going to have a zip line. We're going to have a virtual roller coaster. And something we're trying to do is we contacted HEB and we asked them if they would set up a free COVID clinic here on our campus, and they've agreed to do that. So maybe you haven't had a chance to get a vaccine. Maybe you got a friend who's kind of not had the chance to get out to get it. We're going to have a COVID vaccine clinic on our campus. And let me tell you why that's important. They agree that they're going to come if we can get 30 people to sign up in advance. So on our website at riverbend.com, we've created a portal. And we want to make sure we get those folks here because we're inviting the people that we serve, the homeless folks and the marginalized folks down in South Austin and East Austin and at Community First to join us. We want them to be a part of our celebration here next Sunday. And I know that a lot of them just haven't gotten online, haven't gotten a chance, or for one reason or another, they haven't had a chance to be vaccinated. So if we provide that for them next week, I think we're helping out our community. And we're going to be smart about this. We're grown-ups, aren't we? We're adults. We can get together and we can be safe. I know my wife and I are going to be extra cautious next week. Our baby girl, Caitlin, is getting married on Labor Day weekend, so we don't want to catch anything next weekend. So we're going to be hyper careful next Sunday. We can take care of each other, don't you think? We can do that. And I think it's important that we get together because I don't know about you, but I need a break. I need to have some fun. I need to just get together, see people I haven't seen in a while, even if I'm just seeing the top half of your head. It'll be good to see you, even if I'm socially distanced from you. I think we just need each other. We need to lighten up. I mean, this is wearing thin, and I think all of us are at a point where it'd be good if we could just be smart about it and safe about it and come together and just reconnect and remember how important we are to each other, how important community is. Because it's important in times like this that we just lighten up, you know? It was back in 2001 that a British psychologist, his name was Dr. Richard Wiseman, put together a team from the University of Hertfordshire in England with the British Science Association, and they decided they wanted to conduct the largest psychological survey in history. In fact, they contacted the Guinness Book of World Records and said, what would it take for us to have the largest psychological survey in history? And they said, well, you'd have to survey over 1 million people. And they said, we're going to do that. And what we're going to find out is we're going to survey the globe. We're going to survey the world. And we are going to find out what is the world's funniest joke. And so they created this thing called the Laugh Lab in 2001, and they put together an online portal and a website, and they invited people from all over the world to submit their best jokes. And they got 40,000 joke submissions. And when you went online, you would submit your joke, and then 5 random jokes were given to you, and you were supposed to rate them on a scale of 1 to 5 from not very funny to very funny. And over the course of a year, they got 40,000 jokes and 1.5 million views on their website, and they found out some amazing things. Now, we're probably not surprised to find out that even among people who speak the same language, people think different things are funny from different parts of the world. They found out that particularly English-speaking Europeans have a really weird sense of humor. And they found out what the most popular joke among English-speaking Europeans was, and it was a joke about a German shepherd. And for some reason, it had to be a German Shepherd. It's either because everybody thought the Germans had no sense of humor or the Germans themselves think they're hilarious. They never said. But the most popular joke among English-speaking Europeans was a joke about a German Shepherd who goes into a telegraph office. And he takes a form and he writes down a message on the form to send as a telegraph. And this is what he wrote. Woof, 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 woof. And so he hands it to the telegraph operator, and the telegraph operator looks at it and says, okay, I can send this, but you should know that for the exact same price, you can add one more woof and it won't cost you anything. And the German Shepherd looked at him and said, but then it wouldn't make any sense. I know, it's not that funny, but apparently English-speaking Europeans thought it was hilarious. The British have an entirely different sense of humor. You want to know what the most funny joke in all of Great Britain was? Not surprisingly, it was a joke about Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. The most popular joke in all of Great Britain was a joke about Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson who go camping. And they pitch their tent, and they set up their camp, and they go to bed for the evening, and while they're sleeping, in the middle of the night, Sherlock Holmes wakes up, and he reaches over to Dr. Watson. He says, Watson, wake up and tell me what you see. And Watson looks up, and he says, oh my, I see a magnificent display of stars. They're beautiful, and they seem to go on forever. And Holmes says to Watson, well, what do you deduce from this observation? And Dr. Watson says, well, that means that it is highly probable, because of the infinite universe and all of the stars that we can see and beyond what we can see, that it's possible. In fact, it is likely that on another solar system, there is another planet where there are two people camping, and they are looking at us, wondering if there is anyone else in the universe. And Holmes looks at Watson and says, no, you idiot, someone stole our tent. Now, I know, you may not think it's that funny, and if I could do it with a British accent, I'm sure it would be a whole lot funnier. And there are some people here today who think that, Dave, those were the best English-speaking jokes in Europe and in England. Well, I didn't invent the survey. Don't shoot the messenger. But I also know that I think all of us believe it's good to laugh once in a while. That humor is a release. That laughter can be therapeutic, even cathartic. I don't know about you, but I've been to many funerals where I have heard some of the most sincere and healing laughter at the celebration of someone's life. In the midst of mourning their loss, I have heard people therapeutically, cathartically laugh. Sometimes life gets so hard and so difficult, I think all we can do sometimes is laugh. When life is dark and when life is heavy, it's good for us to lighten up. See, I think this is part of our calling. This is part of the challenge. It's part of the challenge that Jesus threw down when he was speaking in his most famous sermon, the Sermon on the Mount. It's recorded for us in the Gospel of Matthew in the 5th chapter. And it's in that sermon that Jesus lays down 3 gauntlets. He says, you are the salt of the earth, and you are the light of the world, and you are to be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Today I want to think about the second of those 3 challenges. You are the light of the world. Now, I've talked about how God is light. Now, Jesus said, I am the light. And we've done a number of studies of light here. And usually we focus on the science of it or the physics of it or the theology of it or the spirituality of it. Today, I want to focus specifically on the psychology of that statement. What does it mean psychologically when Jesus says to us, you are the light of the world? And I think it means one important thing, that we need to lighten up. But before we talk about that, would you pray with me? Father in heaven, I would ask that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart would be pleasing in your sight, that you would use your word spoken by your servant and anointed by your Spirit to challenge us and to comfort us and to encourage us to lighten up. Pray that for myself and for my family and for all of us here. For I ask that in Jesus' name. Amen. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, Jesus says very plainly, you are the light of the world. And I want you to notice two things about that simple statement. The first one is, I want you to notice what he does and doesn't say. You notice what Jesus does say. He says, you are the light of the world. He doesn't say, you could be the light of the world. You should be the light of the world. You ought to be the light of the world. You might, possibly, if you were more spiritual, if you were a better person, if you got your act together, then maybe, possibly, you could, perchance, be the light of the world. He doesn't say that. He simply says, Umes este ta phos tos cosmos. Any first-year Greek student studying Koine or Biblical Greek could translate that sentence. It's very simple. The word phos, or phos, ta phos, is the word for light. Tos cosmos, cosmos, is the word for the world. The light, tos cosmos, of the world. Umes este is the second person plural. Umes is second person plural. And we in Texas know how to properly translate the second person plural pronoun. It is properly translated y'all, because it's second person plural of you. Umes, y'all. Este, are. Este is the ubiquitous Greek word, and it's interesting. I realized this week, if you speak Spanish, how do you say I am? Yo estoy. Estoy, están, estás. That's to be in Spanish. Comes directly from the Greek, este, which means you are. And it is a present active indicative verb, which means you are currently, in this moment, indicating by your breath, by your life, by your place on this planet, you are, in this moment, the light of the world. You are, right now, the light of the world. Not if, not maybe, not could be, not possibly. Umes este. You are the light of the world. The second thing I want you to notice, who is Jesus talking to? This is a Sermon on the Mount. This wasn't a gathering of his faithful followers. This wasn't a segregated crowd that was vetted out because they were hand-selected to be there. This was a random gathering. It was early in Jesus' ministry, before he became really famous and had raised the dead and walked on the water and all those crazy things. But there wasn't much going on 2,000 years ago in Galilee. And if you had this controversial, amazing young rabbi who was going to be teaching, there were perhaps thousands of people there. And it was an unsegregated gathering. It was the rich and the poor, the old and the young, the men and the women, the Jews and the Gentiles, the spiritual and the unspiritual, the righteous and the unrighteous. The entire hillside was filled with a random selection of people like us. And Jesus looks at us and he says, you are currently, in this moment, the light of the world. Now, I want to think about that psychologically. 2,000 years ago, there was no one in that crowd, except for the one who was speaking, who really had ever studied human behavior or human psychology. I believe that Jesus knows human beings infinitely well, so he knows what makes us tick. He knows what motivates us. He knows our internal operating systems better than we do today. But in the 2,000 years since that hillside sermon, we've learned a lot about human behavior. We've learned a lot about modern psychology. And if you've studied modern psychology at the collegiate level or the graduate level, or even in a casual personal investigation, eventually, in your study of human psychology, you will be forced to deal with the interpretation of statistics. Because to understand behaviors of individuals, you have to understand how people behave compared to each other. And in the study of statistics, in the study of psychology, there is an algorithm called probability theory. And probability theory is based on a mathematical equation from any random sample that says if it is a standard sample and you can identify the mean, the midpoint, the average, then the average random sample, if it has a standard dispersion, if it has a normal response, will display itself in what's called a Gaussian curve. Every sample displays itself as having a group of people toward the average and falling off in equal amounts toward the extremes. Jesus is identifying in that moment, on the Sermon on the Mount, the Gaussian curve of how we live as the light of the world. And basically, according to modern psychology, Jesus divides that group of people and divides us into three groups. And psychologically speaking, this theory, psychological theory, is reliable mathematically. And it says that one standard deviation from the mean, there are a group of people on one side, and what he's basically saying is that each of us displays our light. We express our faith, our convictions, our belief. We live our life individually in different ways, but as collectively, there are a group of us on one extreme who display or who operate in our beliefs or in our convictions or in our faith from one extreme that manifests itself in our shame. Now, we may not think that we are expressing our faith or our beliefs out of our shame, but really it sounds like this. I'm not sure I believe that. I'm not sure I can agree with that. I'm not sure about what my point of view is or my opinion is or what I should believe about this. And it's not motivated by shame per se as much as it's this idea that I can't let you know what I really believe because I'm not confident either that you'll receive it or that I really believe it myself. And so it manifests itself in a form of self-doubt, or even in the extreme as a form of self-loathing. You don't want to know. You don't want to know what I think. You don't want to know what I believe. Or maybe in a more benign sense, it's too personal. My faith, what I believe, that's my thing. I'm not going to share that with you. And people who are in this group are people whose beliefs, whose faith, whose light is dimmed because of their lack of confidence, because of their lack of self-assurance, because of their insecurity. Because I'm not really sure about what's real or what I believe or if my point of view is viable. And Jesus describes them in the Sermon on the Mount as people who take their light, their lamp, and they light it, and they put it under a bowl. This is a percentage of us. There is a percentage of any group of people who are operating from a place of doubt or fear or insecurity about what they believe. And so they dim that light that they could share, that hope and that optimism and that light that they could bring to the world because they're too cautious, they're too fearful, they're too insecure. Now, Gaussian curve and the theory psychologically tells us that if there's a group of people on one extreme, there's an equal number on the other extreme, the opposite extreme. People who do not dim their opinions or their faith or their belief because of shame. They broadcast their faith because of their pride, because of their need for you to believe what they believe, for you to agree with them. They're the people who are like high beam headlights, and they're constantly illuminating, telling other people what they should believe, what they should think, what their point of view should be. They broadcast their beliefs. And it's not just a self-confidence that they have. It's not just this sense of self-reliance. It's almost a self-promotion. They're self-promoting because it's not enough for me to believe these things. I need you to agree with me. And I will blind you, I will bully you with my opinions and my point of view and my beliefs. Now, if you've spent any time around the church, you realize the church is populated with people like this. And they're motivated from the moral point of view that I have to show you what I believe because your eternal destiny depends on it. And it's up to me to be that light that shines for you. But this is not an exclusively Christian behavior. Who's Jesus talking to? He's talking to the crowd. He's talking to the agnostics and the atheists. He's talking to the unspiritual and the unsaved and the unbelieving. It was an unsegregated, random group of people. He wasn't talking to his dedicated followers. He was talking to the doubters and the skeptics. And you see it all the time. You know, an atheist believes, right? An atheist has to believe there is no God. A scientist believes. They believe in their theories, in their calculations, and in their proofs. We have to operate in the universe that we live in by faith because there's too much mystery. We have no idea what to even ask. We don't even know what we don't know. And so we operate by faith, and there are those of us who need others to believe what we believe, who broadcast our beliefs and our point of view. And we bully others and we manipulate others into joining us. You've seen it. You watch the news, you watch the protest marches, they burn down buildings, and in their rage and their anger, they demand conformity. We have the correct point of view. We have the exclusive insight into what is right, and you better believe it, or you're going to hell. You see it all the time. Jesus says, these are the people who are like a town built on a hill that cannot be hidden. Now, I realize if you're literate in the Bible, if you've read through the Sermon on the Mount more than once, especially if you've spent any time studying it, you're tapping the brakes right now. You're going, whoa, 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 Dave, you're a freaking heretic. What are you talking about? The city on the hill is what we are supposed to be. We are taught that we are to be the light of the world, right? And we're supposed to be that city on the hill. Riverbend is supposed to be that city on the hill, the bright shining light, the lighthouse, the beacon in the dark, where people who have lost their way can find hope. I was taught that same thing. For decades, I believed that what Jesus was saying was, you are supposed to be the light of the world, and you should be a city on a hill that cannot be hidden. Let your light shine. I'm convinced from a psychological point of view, Jesus means exactly the opposite. You don't want to be the city on a hill that cannot be hidden. Because why is this city built on a hill? Because it's a place of power. It's a place of influence. Why did they build fortresses on mountaintops? Because they're hard to get to. Because they're easy to defend. Because it's how you lord it over the people in the valley. It's how you say to all of the minions, we are the ones. We are the light on the hill. We are the powerful. We are the ones who, if you want to join us, you have to agree with us and conform to us. And Jesus says that city on a hill cannot be hidden. You know what I see when I see that that anger and that rage and that insistence on conformity. It's another version of shame. It's another version of insecurity. But you know what it really is? It's hypocrisy. It's just hypocrisy. Because I need you to believe what I believe, because I'm not sure I believe it. And if I can convince you to believe it, then at least I won't be alone. And if I can get enough of us to believe it, then maybe I'll be right. And that hypocrisy comes out in the tone. You ever heard the phrase, "Methink he protesteth too much"? Or the advice that says if you're uncertain of your argument, just say it louder. Just be more forceful. You know what is not hidden about that? That you don't really believe it. Because if you were convinced and you were confident in your beliefs, you could just put it out there and let it be. You don't have to bully anybody. You don't have to lord it over anybody. You don't have to say, believe this or die. Fortunately for us, in a Gaussian paradigm, in modern psychology, we know that life is not lived at the extremes, that there's a group of people in the middle. And this is the people that Jesus is talking to. And these are people who shine their light, who manifest their faith primarily through their humility. He describes it like this. He says, instead of being a city on a hill, or instead of lighting your lamp and putting it under a bowl, you should take your lamp and you should put it in perspective. You should put it where it belongs. And where does it belong? It belongs on a lampstand in the middle of the household where it gives light to everyone. You should have this idea that you are the light of the world for the benefit of others, to make others' lives better. That's why we are the light of the world. So that everyone in the household might experience the hope and the presence and the activity and the strength and the companionship that each of us brings, because all of us bring it. He says you set the light on a lampstand and it brings light to the whole world. And it requires a self-awareness, you know. It requires an awareness that what I am doing has an influence on the people around me. That if I'm dragging the room down, if I'm dragging my friendships down, if I'm dragging my relationships down, that's on me, because I'm supposed to be the light. I'm supposed to be lightening things up. I'm supposed to be lifting the load. I'm supposed to be making the lives of others better. That's what it is to be the light. He doubles down on it when he says, instead of these things, in the same way, you should let your light so shine before others. Why are we the light of the world? You got to get out of your own way. It's not about you. It's about the joy. It's about the kindness. It's about the generosity. It's about the grace. It's about the love. It's about the strength. It's about the hope. It's about the optimism that you bring to others. And then he says that you let your light so shine before others so they will see your good deeds. And this is, we trip up on this because we think, my light is these things that I do. Like I feed the poor, or I care for the needy, or I rescue stray cats, or I put up with Dave, or whatever. All of those sacrifices that you make. And that's not it at all. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about me coming into a relationship where I can add value. We're going to talk about this next week, but ask yourself the question, what is a perfect parent? What does a perfect parent look like? What does a perfect parent do? What is a perfect spouse, a perfect partner, a perfect brother or sister, a perfect neighbor, a perfect coworker, a perfect boss? What are those things? Well, we don't know, because none of us is perfect. But the point isn't to be fully perfect. The point is to be fully present. You see, I think the expression that makes people thankful to God for us, Because when they see your good deeds, they praise their Father in heaven. I'm so thankful that you were there. I'm so thankful to have you in my life. I'm so thankful for your presence. I'm thankful for you being you in my life. I think what it comes down to is simply availability. Say, I'll be here for you. Count on me. I'm bringing my light to the party. See, there's something encouraging about understanding probability theory and probability density functions and the psychology of a Gaussian curve. And you know what's encouraging about it? It's not that there are predictable percentages of people who are 1 and 2 degrees away from a standard deviation from the mean, but that most of us, a majority of us, are right where we're supposed to be. You're already doing it. Modern psychology and probability theory tells us that over 60%, almost 2/3, actually 63.27%, in a standard deviation are within the mean, within 1 degree of separation of difference from the mean. That means, psychologically speaking, most of us are getting it right. 2/3 of us are being the light we're supposed to be. We are that light that makes the life of others around us better. Well done. We should be encouraged by this idea that what Jesus is saying is este umes ta phos tas cosmos. You are the light of the world, currently, presently, in this moment. No matter where you are spiritually, no matter what you believe, no matter whether you are old or young or rich or poor or successful or a failure, you are the light of the world right now, right in this place. You have the capacity to make the world a better place. It's the challenge, the gauntlet that Jesus throws down when he says, you are the salt of the earth. And you are the light of the world. And you are to be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. It is the gauntlet. It is the challenge to be exceptional. To be yourself. You already are. So are you interested in finding out what the funniest joke in the world is according to science? Do you have any interest in that? In 2002, Richard Wiseman and the British Science Association and the Laugh Lab published what they found was the funniest joke in the world. Would you like to know what it was? Okay, if you don't want to know, that's fine. We'll just be done. That's okay. But do you want to know what it is? Okay, now remember, this was 20 years ago. But this is science, people. This is research. Guinness Book of World Records acknowledged the world's largest psychological survey, came up with this as the funniest joke in the world. You ready? 2 guys are out hunting. They're walking through the woods, and all of a sudden the buddy's friend collapses. He rushes over to him, and he's not breathing. There's no sign of life. His eyes are glazed over. So he reaches in his pocket, and he gets out his cell phone. He has cell service. So he calls 911. He says, operator, I think my friend is dead. We're out in the woods, we're hunting. And the operator goes, calm down, breathe. I can help you with this. Tell me what's going on. I think my friend is dead. Okay. Here's what I need you to do first. I need you to go, and I need you to make sure that your friend is dead. The guy says, okay. The phone goes silent. All of a sudden, there's a gunshot. And he picks up the phone and says, okay, now what? Don't shoot the messenger. This is science, people. Scientifically, in 2002, they determined that was the funniest joke in the world. But I, because I am hilarious, have conducted my own survey. And I have found the funniest joke in the world. But I can't tell it to you in church. I told it to the band, and they agreed. It's pretty funny, isn't it? And they double dog dare me to tell this joke in church. But I said,
you'd be fired.
Yeah, I want to keep my job. So I'll share with you what I have found is the second funniest joke in the world, if you want to hear it. Do you want to hear the second funny? That's a pity clap. That's what I need. I need pity. Do you really want to hear it? All right. Funniest joke in the world that I can tell you in church. There's a guy, he's driving through his neighborhood and he sees a sign in one of his neighbor's front yard, and the sign says, "Talking dog for sale." The guy slams on his brakes. He says, "This can't be real." He jumps out of his car, he runs to the guy's front door, rings the doorbell. Guy comes to the door, he says, is that sign real? Do you have a talking dog? Guy says, "Sure, he's right there, he's sitting on the floor." The guy says, "Well, can I meet him?" He's like, "Sure, come on in." Guy sits down next to the dog, and the dog's owner says, "Just ask him anything." So the man looks at the dog and he says, "So what's your story?" The dog looks at him and he says, "Well, when I was a pup, I was raised in Switzerland and I was trained as a rescue dog in the Alps, and I was really good at it. I saved a lot of people's lives. And after a while, the military found out about me, and they trained me to become a bomb-sniffing dog. And I did 2 tours in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I saved a bunch of soldiers' lives, and I got a bunch of medals. And then I retired, and now I moved back home. And now, a couple times a week, I go to nursing homes, and I read to the old folks." The guy's sitting there, and he's listening to this dog, and his jaw is open, and he looks at the owner of the dog. And he says, "Why in the world would you sell this incredible, amazing dog?" And the guy says, "Because he's a liar. He didn't do any of that stuff." Next Sunday, 10 o'clock, we're going to come together and we will have fun. We have great music. We'll have great time together. We'll have free barbecue. Hopefully we'll be able to help some folks who haven't been able to get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. Our kids will play. We'll be smart. We'll be safe. And we'll be together. So I want to encourage you to be here next week at 10. And if you're uncomfortable being in a room in this situation, come at 11. We'll be smart about it. Have some free barbecue. Wave at your friends. Say hi to me. My wife and I will be here. We'll look forward to seeing you. But in the meantime, Riverbend, lighten up.